So, Mrs. Wheeler, what would you recommend to counselors who are talking to middle school students and talking about careers, career development? How would you handle that?
Well, I think you have to meet students where they're at. Some of our students might have a really kind of well-developed sense of what they want to do when they're older because their parents either nurtured that through conversations or have exposed them to a lot of experiences in the world that they, kind of have, clung onto, or maybe they've done volunteer work, so they kind of know things that they like and dislike. I think there are other students on the other end of the spectrum that really have not thought about it much and really need to start from square one and maybe get them to think about some of the places that they've been, maybe some of the if they've done any traveling or any experiences that they've had, to draw upon that as to, well, what did you like about that place, and could you see yourself, working in a place like that someday? So I think it's just definitely, as a counselor, it's always going to be, tailored to the individual student and where they are. When I work in large groups of middle school students, I think it's important to get them to assess always their skills and their strengths and their weaknesses, and have them really get to know themselves really well. We do a couple of learning inventory assessments, like True Colors, that ask the students to get to know themselves, their personality, and then that matches them up with a certain color, which then matches them up to some possible careers. So I think at the middle school level, it's just about opening their doors and, getting students to continue to think about it at each level.
Okay. What common themes do you see when talking to middle schoolers about, again, career and career development?
So when I push into classes and I do large group work, one of the most common themes I see is that middle school students expect, maybe a bit unrealistically, these kind of really fast, high-paced, exciting jobs where they're investigating crime scenes or, working in the field that they want. Most students want to be active. They want to be in these kind of competitive jobs someday, and they want a lot of face time and glamour to some of these positions that they think they're going to get. And that's fine, but we do talk about how that maybe is a smaller, like the crime scene investigator is like one job that's, for very specific people with very specific skills and education. But, let's look at some other jobs that support that person who's actually going out onto the field. And I think, naturally, what students are exposed to via the media is influencing what they want to be when they grow up.
Okay. So overall, what is their response to career development process? Do they find it helpful? Do they respond? How do they respond to it?
Well, I think they like the activities. I think they love to learn about themselves, and let's face it, adolescents love to talk about themselves, so that's helpful. As far as them really thinking seriously about how their skills and strengths would impact what they're going to do later in life and their choices for education, middle school students have a hard time with that. I think they're not quite ready to really, look into the future that far, but, we're making that bridge for them. We're helping them to start to think that, they're going to be making choices soon. Like, even in 8th grade, we ask them to choose their electives. They can choose technology, music, family and consumer science, art. Well, that's going to kind of set them up for a path in high school. And say for a student who gets really into technology in 8th grade, well, then there's about 15 electives that you could take at the high school, and some of them are pre-engineering electives that might bring you to a college someday that you might get into because you've had all these engineering-based courses. So we kind of start to talk to them about that. And once we make that link, you can see the light bulb go on. Like, oh, this really is coming up very soon in my life. But it's hard for them, I think, overall. They're kind of young still.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.